Are there any motions to take note of answers? Senator Lyons.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I take note of answers to questions asked by Senators Wong, Cameron and myself. And if I could continue. I think today that Senator Abetz had a slip of the tongue when I asked him about the government's record of jobs and growth, and he talked about the government's record of employment. I think what he really meant to say, and he made a mistake, was he meant to say the government's record of unemployment. We cannot have in this country the highest unemployment record for decades at 6.3%, and somehow those opposite live in some parallel universe where they think they've got some record of employment. The facts and figures are there. 800,000 Australians out of work, people getting unemployed every day of the week, and yet this government tries to pretend that it's got some record on employment. Well, history will show, the statistics show, the only record it's got is one of unemployment, and the highest unemployment records on history, the highest for many, many years. What a shameful, disgraceful record that is for the Abbott government to have, and to try and pretend that it's somehow still on about growth and employment is just a fabrication. And today, again, for the second day in a row, we asked the Minister for Employment to rule out or rule in, Mr Deputy President, what the government's intention is on penalty rates. And we know this government's record, when it denies or when it shifts around, when it avoids the questions, because we've seen it before, that means it will do what it intends to do, what it's wanted to do from day one, and that is reduce penalty rates. And this fabrication, where the Prime Minister's on the public record as saying that reducing penalty rates creates more jobs, is an absolute myth. An absolute myth. There's no research, no economist would suggest that. I don't know how you make people poorer. You make people poorer by taking their penalty rates off them, and you create more low-paid jobs. But I want to focus again on the seat of Canning and the town of Mandurah, where the government's record in that area is an absolute disgrace. Now, Perth, we know, has higher than average rates, but Mandurah in the seat of Canning consistently falls behind. In the latest ABS stats, it has an unemployment rate higher, 3% higher than the Perth metro area, and the youth unemployment rate is 4% higher. Now, how can the government say it's committed to jobs and growth when in an electorate which it has held, with due regard to the passing of Don Randall, but nevertheless a seat which it has held where its unemployment record is higher than anywhere else in Perth, and in relation to youth unemployment, it's quite a disgrace, higher than the national average, 14.3%. And what we know about Mandurah is, unfortunately, the unemployment rate has increased consistently since the Abbott government took over, consistently increased. In fact, since the coalition came into power, there's 1,000 more people in Mandurah who are unemployed. That is not a record of employment, it's a record of unemployment. And if we look, despite what Labor managed to achieve, we reduced the unemployment record rates in Mandurah when we were in power, but the government has let that slip by. It's completely gone. And the other thing we know about Mandurah, given the government won't make a straight answer, simple yes or no on penalty rates, is that 25% of the population of Mandurah, 25%, rely on penalty rates that the Abbott government wants to cut. And we've got 63% more people on New Start under the Abbott government. That is not a record of employment. That is a record of unemployment in the seat of Canning. And that is disgraceful, and it stands well and truly on the Abbott government's record. A record, poor people in Mandurah relying on penalties that the government wants to take off them, 1,000 more people out of work since the Abbott government came into power in Mandurah. That's not any kind of record to be proud of, and the government needs to be held accountable.
Senator.